Hi everyone! I thought it would be fun to do a video on how I start a fire in my wood stove. And I just want to focus on what I just said for a moment before I go any further. This is how I start a fire. There can be many different ways, I'm sure, depending on your type of stove, your preferences, what you're used to doing, and all of that. But every stove is unique in their own way, and I had to get used to this one. I had two previously in previous cabins that I lived in, and each one of those wood stoves were different. And so the first thing I want to mention is if you're shopping for a wood stove, if you go to a dealer, the first thing I can almost guarantee you that they'll ask you is, what is the square footage of your home that you're heating? And what they will do is they will size the specs of the stove to um, go along with your square footage. But here's what I've always done, and it may or may not make sense to many of you, but I always choose a larger stove. And that is because if the stove that's recommended to me limits my ability to load it at night full of wood before I go to bed, I would rather have the option of having that larger stove just in case I need it, especially when it gets down to 0 on a really, really cold, windy night. And I do not want to have to get out of bed more times than I should or want to to load more logs. So I bought a larger stove than what was recommended to me, and it's been working out great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I start my stove. It's today is May 7, and it's still chilly at night. So even though I didn't have a fire all day, it's about 5 o'clock now, and I'm going to get one going just to take the edge off. And I use the same method every time because it works so well for me. And sometimes it's a little bit of an experiment if you've just purchased a stove and you're just trying it out. But number one rule, do not put in any wood that's wet at all. Make sure it is very, very dry, because what will happen is if you try to burn wet wood over time, it will collect, that smoke will collect in your chimney, and it is called creosote. And if it builds up too much, that will over at some point start a fire. And it happens every year, somewhere in the world. And I clean my chimney twice a year. And I'll do a video on that, how I clean my own chimney. I bought a brush. Yes, you can hire someone. They'll charge you about $300. My other house, I used to climb up on my roof and do it myself. And this one is easier because I do not have to climb up on my roof. I can stand on the ground and do it that way. So I will show you a video on how I do that. It's almost time because I clean it every spring, and then I do it again late fall before I start my fires again. And if I'm really, really have any concerns at all, I'll go out there in the middle of winter when the chimney is cold, and I'll do it again. It only takes 10 minutes. The chimney pipe inside, I was a little stressed at first because I have to take it completely apart, and I was very worried about putting it back together. But I came up with a plan this summer, and I'm going to do a video on that, because each piece that I take apart, I'm going to put colored tape on how it lines up perfectly. So when I put it back together, all I have to do is follow my colored tape. And I wished I'd thought of it the first time, but hey, you learn as you go, right? So what I do is I've got my wood here, I've got my newspaper, and the chimney is rather cold because it hasn't been burning until since this morning. And with a cold chimney, it does take a while to warm it up. If it was snowing out and extremely cold, it would be very, very different starting this fire, because cold air will be coming down this chimney, and the warm air, of course, is pushing against it from the fire, and it takes a while to get that to reverse. But it's not that bad today, and so I'm just going to show you how I start my fire. And before I forget, once it's going, I'm going to make some baked chicken and some rice. And if that's a success, I will show you how I did it. Since many of you are curious what kind of meals I make here in my little off-grid cabin. And honestly, I'm just about as basic as you can possibly get. I am not a fancy cook. I'm not interested in learning any more than the basics, because to me, I'd rather do other things. So, but cooking on the wood stove is really easy. So I will show you later tonight how I'm doing that. So here we go. I take 2 small pieces. First of all, I take 2 small logs like this, and this is poplar. I call it junk wood because it burns really fast, but I'm using it up to get through the rest of this year, and then I won't be using poplar anymore. It's just really ridiculous because you have to continue feeding your stove, and it burns so fast. It's just not worth it, and it also doesn't leave much of an ash bed behind. So I'm just going to use it this time. I've got 2 pieces, and I hope you can see my stove. I'm going to show you how I do this, and I hope you can hear me. I put 1 piece over here, and I put 1 piece over here, because what I'm doing is I'm creating a middle to where I'll set my kindling over. And so I kind of use a combination of newspaper and birch bark. And I've mentioned this before, but birch bark is so wonderful to use because it will burn even if it's wet, because it has an oil in the bark, and it is really, really good to use for starting a fire. Or if you've got a fire that's kind of sluggish, you can put a few pieces in there too, and it will get the fire going. So I've got a couple to put in here, and so I've got those in the middle. And then this is cedar, and I went out in the woods and I found some dead cedar trees, and some of them can be quite large, and it's very lightweight wood. So I cut down quite a bit of cedar for my kindling, and the only problem with cedar is I do not recommend using it in a fireplace because it sparks. It shoots out a lot of sparks. Behind the glass door in my wood stove, it's completely safe, but I would not use it in an outdoor fire or an open fireplace because of the sparks. But I love it as kindling because it lights really well, as you'll see. So I put this across my supporting logs here, and I've got some more pieces of small scrap. But first I'm going to throw a couple more pieces of, I use a lot of scraps. This is just bark off of a poplar tree. And what you want to do is when you start a fire, just use a bunch of small pieces because it needs the airflow to get started. You cannot start a fire with just 1 log. Well, it might work, but it will take a very long time, if at all. So just use a lot of small, dry birch paper, newspaper, pieces of even pine. Pine is a really good log fire starter. And pine will not spark as much as cedar does. So I kind of use a combination of both, whatever I can find out in the woods. So I've got this here. And then I'm going to put another piece over here, kind of crisscross it for the airflow. And here we go. And what I do is I don't close the door just yet because I want the airflow to travel up the chimney and send that warm air upward to continue fanning the fire. And I never ever walk away and leave the door open. I just sit here for a few minutes and make sure the fire is going, and then I close the door. Now this stove I especially like because it's also a top loader. The top part, well, it's a top loader. There's a little handle, and once the fire is going, I can add logs from the top without opening this front. And I think it's a lot safer that way, and it's also easier in the middle of the night when I'm walking over here in the dark. I don't have to find the knob, and I don't have to worry about it being shut securely at night, because usually I'm half asleep when I have to keep the fire going. And so it's going really well. And I will shut this. And I always make sure it's going pretty well before I add any more logs, because you don't want to lose that airflow that's coming up from underneath from those small logs that are supporting the kindling. So that's really the key to starting a fire, just to make sure you have dry kindling, you have the airflow coming from the bottom up, and once you get that fire going, it's going to heat up that chimney, and then you can just go ahead and add your logs. But I just want to remind everyone that it's so important to only burn dry wood. In a wood stove, only burn wood. Do not put cardboard or any other material in there. And this has never happened to me, but I have snuck a few pieces in there when I didn't have kindling. But I've been told it can get stuck in the chimney and start a chimney fire. So I do not do that anymore. If you have cardboard to burn, or especially something with color on it or the plastic coating, just burn it outside. Don't put it in your wood stove. It's not worth it. And also anything with an oil, if you've got kindling lumber with paint or an oil finish, don't burn those either. And that is because those chemicals are going to be released in the fire, and they will be in your house. And even if you can't smell those chemicals, it will cause you to, at the very least, have a headache and be a health threat. So just burn dry, natural wood, newspaper, bark, kindling, things like that. And anything else you have, save it for outside for a bonfire one day. And just be safe that way. So this fire, I can see in my phone, it's doing quite well. It's time to add another log. And I crisscross them. I do not place them directly on the fire because I want to keep that airflow going until it really starts to burn. So what I'll do is I'll probably add another piece of cedar just to make sure I've got my fire going, and it should take off pretty good in a moment. Now I'm putting the kindling logs behind those brackets, and I hope you can see those brackets. Those brackets are there for a very important reason, to keep the logs from leaning against the glass window. And I have seen some people take them out, and that is so dangerous, because the last thing you want is to not be home and you've got a fire in your wood stove and those logs slip and start leaning against the glass. You do not want that. Now it's starting to die down a little bit, so I'll open the door just to give it a little bit more air because the chimney is still warming up. And some people say not to do this, but I've done this for years and it's not a problem. So if you have any suggestions, any comments, any ideas, or if you do things differently, I'd love to hear them. Feel free to ask me anything, share any tips that you might have, and what kind of wood stove you have, what size you have, or what kind of cabin, if you have a cabin, how you heat your cabin. Now, I used to cut my own wood. I used to go out in the forest, and I used to cut primarily birch because up here in Maine, uh, we really don't have a whole lot of hardwood in my area. So, um, birch I found to be an excellent choice for me to heat my cabin. But since I don't cut my wood anymore, it's just too much work, and I was getting tired. I buy hardwood, which is oak, and gosh, I don't even know what else he brings. Isn't that terrible? I should know. But he brings a lot of oak, which will burn for quite a while, and he brings these really large pieces. My stove takes a 16-inch log, which is pretty standard, I think, but you can buy stoves that will take an 18-inch or even a 20-inch log, depending on how much room you have in your cabin and where you want to place it. I wanted mine in the corner so I could always see the fire. It's just so cool to see it on a cold night when I'm in bed and the snow is coming down. And the dogs love to sleep in front of it. And there's nothing like having a fire. I don't know. It's just really cool. It's really relaxing. So I hope you enjoyed my video. And what I'm going to do is open this door again just to get it going. And I'm going to put another piece of birch paper in here just to get it going a little bit. Sometimes it takes a little bit of working with it just to get it going the way I want it. And then I will put a larger log on, and then it will be ready for me to cook my chicken dinner. so I also use it to heat water when I need to wash my dishes and when I want to take a shower. I'll put water in a pot and heat it up, and there you go, hot water. Oh, one more thing about a wood stove. It will dry the air very quickly in your cabin. And they do sell very expensive, gosh, I forget what they're made out of. Isn't that terrible? Cast iron pots, kettles that you can place right on your wood stove. And the boiling water will humidify the air in your cabin. And that's really important because a while back I noticed my eyes were really, I was having trouble with my eyes, and I figured, oh my gosh, it's really dry air in here. And so I put on a pot of water, and that made all the difference in the world. So that's really important to know, especially in the winter when the air is dry anyway. And on a night like this, it's only the first week in May. It's an overcast, actually humid, kind of a gloomy day, and it's very damp. So actually, I prefer that the fire is drying out the cabin a little bit to take out that kind of a chill to the air. Just enough to warm it up and make it cozy for tonight. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It's just part of living off grid. Each wood stove is different. I'm not an expert on the different brands. I just went to a very reputable dealer and had them install the stove. I just recommend do not install a stove if you're not sure what you're doing, because there are very specific setbacks from the wall. There's a specific type of angle to the interior pipe that goes outside. There are very specific ways to attach the ends. And the reason I know this is because the previous cabin I lived in, I had someone install a stove, and he put the pipe in upside down, and creosote was pouring out of the cracks, and my cabin could have burned down. And so don't hire some guy down the road unless he's done it for years and he has excellent references. And even then, question what he's doing. And in my case, it was worth spending the extra money to have a professional installer who sold me the stove bring it up here and do the whole thing. And it's been working great ever since. So when I do my chimney sweep, I will video that. I get absolutely filthy dirty, and you'll see all the soot that comes out, and it'll have built up over the winter, so it'll be a good amount of creosote that's coming out. But it's always a dry, flaky powder, which is a good kind. And the hotter the fire, the better it is for your chimney. So every morning, it's best to start a fire and make it burn really hot, so it really, really cleans out that chimney from the night before. And I've heard something about putting tin cans in there, but I'm not sure about that, so I have not ever done that. But everybody has their own opinion, everybody has their own experience. But this is mine, and it's been working out great for almost 5 years now. And I absolutely love this stove. It's a little too big for my cabin, but hey, on those really cold winter nights, I've been able to stuff it full of logs and turn down the draft, and it usually keeps burning all night, which is absolutely perfect. So thank you for watching. I really enjoy creating these videos. Please feel free to ask me any more questions. I'm waiting for my 6 cords of firewood to get here, and I will start doing a video on how I stack it. And I'm also going to do a rug braiding video as soon as my wool gets here. I ordered some from Amazon. And what I did with that was I found that wool fabric by the yard is so expensive. So what I did was I bought a bunch of wool blankets, and it was cheaper that way. So why not cut those into strips, right? It's the same thing. So I might do a series on how I cut the strips, how I sew them together, because one of you asked me how I did that. And then I'll do one with how I braid them. And then I'll do the last one, how I sew the braids to the rug. And I will, I set myself a goal to finish my carpet by the end of the summer. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that, but that rug will really help keep this cabin nice and toasty warm this winter, because all I have is plywood for my floor and a few throw rugs. So I'm glad I kept that rug, and I'm glad I decided to keep working on it. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I appreciate you all. I hope you're all having a great day. Take care.